It was almost midnight. Rain was falling hard over the small town of Brook Hollow. Thunder rolled across the sky like heavy drums. The streets were empty. Most people were asleep, but Daniel Harper was awake. He was inside his old garage at the side of his house. The yellow light above his workbench flickered while he worked on a broken car engine. Oil covered his hands. Music played softly from a small radio. Daniel liked the quiet of the night. It helped him forget his problems. The bills. The lonely house. The feeling that nothing exciting ever happened in his life. Then he heard something. At first, he thought it was just the wind. But this sound was different. Scratch. Drag. Scratch. It sounded like something heavy was pulling itself across the wet ground outside. Daniel stopped moving. The sound came again. Scratch, drag. It was close. Very close. His heart began to beat faster. He slowly turned off the radio. The garage became silent except for the rain hitting the roof. The sound came again, this time right outside the garage door. Daniel walked carefully toward the door. He wiped his hands on a cloth. His fingers were shaking, but he told himself it was nothing. Maybe a dog. Maybe some injured animal. He unlocked the side door and opened it just a little. Cold rain blew inside. He looked down and froze. On the wet concrete floor, under the weak streetlight, something was lying there. It was small, about the size of a large dog. Its body was covered in dark red scales. Not fur, not skin, scales. Two small wings were folded tightly against its back. One wing was torn and bleeding. Thin smoke rose from its body as rain touched its skin. Daniel's mind refused to understand what he was seeing. The creature moved slightly. Its tail dragged across the ground. Then it lifted its head. Golden eyes looked straight at him. Not animal eyes. Not empty. They were full of pain. Full of fear. The creature opened its mouth. Small sharp teeth showed between cracked lips. And in a weak, broken voice, it said one word. Help! Daniel stepped back. This was impossible. Dragons were not real. They were stories in books. Old legends told by children around campfires. But this was not a story. This was real. The small dragon tried to crawl forward, but collapsed again. Blood mixed with rainwater and flowed across the concrete. Daniel looked up and down the street. No one was there. No cars. No people. Only rain and darkness. He looked back at the creature. It was breathing slowly now. Very slowly. If he closed the door, if he walked away, maybe this would not become his problem. But those golden eyes were still watching him. Waiting. Daniel took a deep breath. Okay, he whispered to himself. Okay, this is crazy. He opened the door wider and stepped outside into the rain. The heat from the dragon's body hit him immediately. Even injured, it was warm, almost burning. He knelt beside it. Up close, he could see more wounds. Deep cuts along its side. Something had attacked it. Something strong. The dragon child was young. Very young. It was just a baby. Who did this to you? Daniel said softly. The dragon did not answer. Its eyes were starting to close. Daniel made a decision. He slid his arms under the creature carefully. The scales were rough but smooth at the same time. The body was lighter than he expected, but still heavy. The dragon gave a small cry as he lifted it. It's okay, Daniel said quickly. I won't hurt you. Rain poured down harder as he carried the dragon inside the garage. He shut the door fast. The garage felt smaller now, more dangerous. Daniel placed the dragon gently on an old blanket near the wall. Steam rose from its body as water dried off its scales. He grabbed his first aid box. His hand was shaking badly now. This is not happening, he muttered. But it was. He cleaned one of the cuts carefully. The dragon flinched but did not attack. Strange. If dragons were real, they should be powerful. Dangerous. But this one was weak. Broken. Suddenly, the lights in the garage flickered. Once. Twice. Then went out completely. Darkness filled the room. Only small red sparks glowed faintly from the dragon's body. Daniel's breathing became heavy. Outside, the thunder stopped. The rain slowed down. An unnatural silence covered the neighborhood. Then a deep vibration moved through the ground. Daniel felt it in his feet, felt it in his chest, like something massive had landed far away. He slowly walked toward the small window of the garage and looked up at the sky. The clouds were moving. Not normal wind movement. They were spinning. in a circle, right above his house. A faint red light glowed behind them. Daniel swallowed hard. He looked back at the dragon child. Its eyes were open again, but this time they were glowing brighter. Not with fear, with recognition, as if it knew what was coming. And outside, far above the clouds, something enormous moved. Watching, waiting, Daniel realized something that made his blood run cold. This little dragon did not crawl here by accident. It came to him, and whatever was in the sky was coming too. The garage was completely dark. Only a faint red glow came from the dragon child's body. Daniel stood frozen near the wall. His heart was beating so loud it felt like thunder inside his chest. Outside, the wind had stopped. No rain, no cars, no sound, just silence. Then the dragon moved. Its small body shook once. The wounds on its side began to glow. Not normal fire, not wild flames. This fire was calm, controlled, like it was alive. Daniel slowly walked closer. "You're safe," he said quietly, even though he was not sure that was true. The dragon's golden eyes opened fully now. They were no longer weak. They were sharp, aware. It lifted its head and looked straight at Daniel. "You came," it whispered. Daniel felt cold. "What do you mean I came?" he asked. The dragon tried to stand but fell again. Daniel moved quickly to help it. The moment he touched its skin, everything exploded in light. A bright red flash filled the garage. Daniel screamed as something burned into his wrist. Not outside, inside. He pulled his hand back, but the dragon was holding him. Its small claws were tight around his arm. Fire wrapped around his wrist like a living snake. Daniel dropped to his knees. The pain was strong, but strange. It did not feel like normal fire. It felt like something was writing on his skin, carving, marking. Then suddenly, it stopped. The garage lights came back on. Daniel looked at his wrist. There was a symbol burned into his skin, a circle with wings. And inside the circle, a small flame. The mark glowed once, then slowly faded into his skin, like it had never been there. Daniel stared at it in shock. "What did you do to me?" he whispered. The dragon child released him and fell back onto the blanket. "You are bound now," the dragon said softly. "Bound," Daniel repeated. To dragon blood. The ground shook again, this time harder. Tools fell from shelves. The car engine rolled slightly on the table. Daniel rushed to the small window again. The sky was no longer normal. The clouds were spinning faster. A giant circle was forming above his house. And in the center of that circle, a deep red light was growing brighter, like a burning eye behind the clouds. Suddenly, every phone in the neighborhood began ringing at the same time. Car alarms started screaming. Dogs barked wildly. Then, in the far distance, sirens, police, military. Someone else had seen the sky. Daniel turned back toward the dragon. "You brought this here," he said, fear rising in his voice. The dragon did not deny it. "They're searching," the child said weakly. "Who?" Daniel asked. The dragon's voice became serious. "The hunters." A loud boom shook the sky. Daniel looked outside again. Something massive moved behind the clouds. Huge shadows. Wings. More than one. His stomach tightened. "Those are dragons," he said slowly. The dragon child closed its eyes. Yes. Another powerful vibration shook the ground. This time, the garage door bent slightly inward, like something huge had passed over the house. Then, a deep voice echoed across the sky. Not through ears, through the mind. "Return the air." Daniel fell back against the wall. He had never felt something like that before. It was ancient, powerful, angry. "Return the air," the voice repeated. The dragon child looked at Daniel. "They found me." Before Daniel could speak, bright white lights filled the street outside. Helicopters, military trucks, men shouting orders. Someone kicked his front door. "Open up." Federal Response Unit. Daniel's breathing became fast. He looked at the dragon child. He looked at his wrist. The mark was glowing again. Hot. Very hot. The dragon struggled to sit up. "If they take me, the sky will burn." Daniel believed it. He did not know why, but he believed it. Another voice echoed from the clouds. Stronger this time. More furious. "You hide my son, human." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Son." This was not just any dragon. This was royalty. Outside, soldiers surrounded the house. Weapons pointed upward. Missiles ready. The helicopters turned their lights toward the sky. The spinning clouds began to open. A massive shape slowly pushed through the storm. Two glowing eyes, bigger than cars, appeared between lightning flashes. Wings stretched across the night, so large they covered the moon. Neighbors screamed. Cars crashed trying to escape. And Daniel stood in the center of it all, a simple mechanic, with a dragon child in his garage, and a burning mark on his wrist. The deep voice spoke one final time. Return the air, or watch your world fall. The dragon child looked at Daniel with something new in its eyes. Not fear, trust. You chose me, the dragon whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. He did not understand any of this. But he knew one thing. If he handed the dragon over, war would begin. If he refused, war would begin. The sky cracked open fully now, and the Dragon King began to descend. The sky did not just open. It tore. Clouds ripped apart like paper. Lightning flashed across the spinning circle above Daniel's house. The air became heavy and hot. Then the Dragon King came through. He was massive, bigger than any building in town. His wings stretched across the entire street. Each scale on his body looked like dark metal mixed with fire. His eyes burned like two suns in the night. When he landed, the ground cracked. Windows shattered. Cars flipped from the shockwave. Soldiers fell backward as wind exploded from his wings. Daniel stood frozen in the driveway. The dragon child stepped out of the garage beside him. Small, weak, but standing. The Dragon King lowered his giant head slowly. His eyes focused only on one thing. The child. My son. The king's deep voice thundered inside every mind nearby. The little dragon looked up. Father. The word echoed softly compared to the king's power. The soldiers aimed their weapons. Target locked, one of them shouted. Red laser dots covered the Dragon King's chest. Helicopters hovered above, shaking in the hot air. Daniel felt the mark on his wrist burn again. Stronger this time, like it was alive. The Dragon King's eyes moved from his son to Daniel. The air grew hotter instantly. You touched him, the king said. Daniel's throat felt dry. I saved him, Daniel answered. Silence. Heavy silence. The dragon child walked forward slowly. He protected me, the child said. The hunters attacked. I escaped. I found him. A low growl rolled from the king's chest. The hunters dare come to this world? Before Daniel could ask what that meant, the sky darkened again, but not for dragons. Behind the torn clouds, something else moved. Something wrong. Cold. Black shapes began forming high above. No fire. No wings. Just long shadows with sharp edges. The Dragon King's head snapped upward. They followed you, he said to his son. The dragon child lowered his eyes. Yes. Suddenly, every military radar system began screaming. Helicopter pilots shouted in panic. Were those things? The black shapes broke through the clouds. Tall creatures with long bone-like limbs. Their skin looked like night itself. Their eyes glowed pale white. They did not fly like dragons. They floated, like they were not part of this world. One of them opened its mouth. No fire came out. Only a beam of dark energy that cut through a helicopter in seconds. The machine exploded mid-air. People screamed. The hunters had arrived. The Dragon King roared so loud the sound pushed back the clouds. Flames burst from his mouth, lighting the entire sky red. Other dragons appeared behind him, dozens of them. They attacked the dark creatures instantly. Fire against shadow, light against void. The battle began above Daniel's house. The sky became a war zone. Flames crossed the night like burning rivers. Black energy sliced through buildings and trees. The soldiers below did not know who to fight. Engage all targets, a commander shouted. Missiles launched upward. Some hit dragons. Some hit hunters. Some hit nothing. Chaos spread everywhere. Daniel grabbed the dragon child and pulled it behind a truck for cover. You said they were searching for you, Daniel said. Why? The child looked at him seriously. I carry the blood flame. What is that? Daniel asked. The dragon child touched Daniel's glowing wrist. The same power now inside you. Daniel stared at the sky. The Dragon King was fighting 3 hunters at once. One hunter pierced his wing with a long black spear made of shadow. The king roared in pain. Daniel felt that pain. The mark on his wrist burned like fire inside his bones. He fell to one knee. The dragon child looked shocked. "You feel him," the child said. "What is happening to me?" Daniel gasped. "You are bound to the royal blood," the child replied. "When he suffers, you suffer." Another hunter broke through the dragon line. It floated downward, toward the street, toward Daniel. Its white eyes locked on him. The creature tilted its head. "You carry it," a cold voice whispered directly into Daniel's mind. The air around Daniel began freezing. Ice formed on the ground near his feet. The dragon child stepped in front of him, growling weakly. "You will not take him," the child said. The hunter raised its hand. A blade of darkness formed in its grip. Daniel looked at his burning wrist. The symbol was glowing bright red now. Without thinking, he raised his arm. Fire exploded outward. Not wild, not random. It formed a shield in front of them. The dark blade hit the fire shield and shattered. The hunter stepped back for the first time, confused. Daniel stared at his own arm in shock. He had never controlled fire before, but it felt natural, like it was always there. Above them, the Dragon King saw the fire shield. His eyes widened. "The guardian," he whispered. The hunters noticed too. 3 of them stopped fighting the dragons and turned toward Daniel. The battlefield changed. This was no longer about the dragon child. It was about the human, the one marked, the one burning with royal fire. The Dragon King roared in rage and broke free from the shadows around him. "No," he thundered. "He is not yours." But the hunters began descending together. Slow, cold, focused. Daniel stood in the middle of a burning street. Dragons fighting above. Military forces panicking below. Dark creatures coming for him. And the dragon child beside him whispered something that made his blood run cold. "They were never hunting me." Daniel looked at him. They were hunting the next guardian. And now they had found him. The hunters did not rush. They descended slowly, confident, certain. 3 of them floated down through smoke and fire, their white eyes locked on Daniel. Everything else became background noise. Dragons were fighting in the sky. Missiles were exploding. Buildings were burning. But for the hunters, there was only one target, Daniel. The dragon child stood in front of him, wings spread wide, even though one was still torn. "You must run," the child said. Daniel did not move. "Run where?" he answered. "They're everywhere." The mark on his wrist began to glow brighter than before. Not just red now, gold mixed with fire. It spread up his arm like glowing cracks in stone. The Dragon King saw it from the sky. His deep voice thundered again. "Awaken him." The dragon child closed his eyes and placed one claw on Daniel's chest. "You are not just bound," the child whispered. "You were chosen before I was born." Daniel felt something unlock inside him, like a door opening in his mind. Suddenly, he was not standing in a burning street anymore. He was somewhere else. A vision, an ancient battlefield, humans and dragons standing side by side, fighting the same shadow creatures. A man stood in front of the Dragon King, a human, with fire covering both his arms. The same symbol on his wrist. Guardian. The vision vanished. Daniel gasped for air. The hunters were only a few meters away now. One raised its long arm. Dark energy formed again. "You do not belong to this world." The hunter's cold voice entered his mind. Daniel felt fear rising inside him. But behind the fear, there was something stronger. Anger. "They came into my world," Daniel whispered. The hunter released the dark energy. This time Daniel did not think. He stepped forward, raised both hands. The mark exploded. Fire burst around him like a storm. But it did not burn the street. It did not burn the dragon child. It burned only the shadow. The dark energy beam hit the wall of fire and vanished. The hunter stopped moving, confused. Daniel felt heat rushing through his veins. He was no longer just defending. He understood it now. The fire was not rage. It was protection. He pointed his hand toward the nearest hunter. A stream of golden flame shot forward, not wild like a dragon's breath. Focused, sharp, it struck the hunter directly in the chest. For the first time, the creature screamed. Its shadow body cracked like broken glass. Light pushed through the cracks. Then it shattered into black dust. The other two hunters pulled back instantly. Above, dragons roared louder. The Dragon King broke free from his enemies and slammed one hunter into the clouds. The sky turned half red, half black. The dragon child looked at Daniel with wide eyes. "You are stronger than before," he said. Daniel looked at his glowing arms. "I can feel them," he said quietly. "Feel who?" the child asked. "The dragons." He could feel their pain, their fire, their fear, and their hope. The remaining hunters stopped attacking. They hovered in the air above the street, watching him carefully. One of them spoke again. "The cycle begins again." Daniel did not understand. "What cycle?" he demanded. But before they answered, the sky cracked again. Not from dragons, not from hunters. Something larger was pushing through. The clouds split completely, and for 1 second, everything became silent. No fire, no wind, no screams. From the tear in the sky, a massive eye opened, larger than the Dragon King. Ancient, red and black. It was not a hunter. It was not a dragon. It was something older. The Dragon King froze midair. His voice shook for the first time. "The Void Emperor." Even the hunters lowered themselves slightly, as if bowing. The giant, I looked down at Earth, at the burning street, at Daniel. "I see the flame reborn." The deep voice echoed across the planet. Windows shattered across the entire city. Phones exploded. People fell to their knees. Daniel felt the fire inside him react. Not with fear, with challenge. The Void Emperor continued. "This world will burn before the Guardian rises." Daniel stepped forward. "No," he said. His voice was small compared to the sky, but the mark on his arm flared brighter than the sun. The dragons in the air roared together, not in fear, in unity. The dragon child stood beside Daniel. "You're not alone," he said. For the first time in history, humans and dragons stood on the same side. "The Void Emperor's eye narrowed. Then let your world decide," it said. The sky began closing slowly. The giant eye faded back into darkness. The remaining hunters retreated upward, not defeated, not destroyed, just waiting. The battle stopped as suddenly as it began. Fires still burned. Buildings were damaged. The street was broken, but the sky was clear again. Stars visible. The Dragon King landed heavily in front of Daniel. Up close, he was even larger, more powerful, but his eyes were no longer filled with anger. They were filled with respect. He lowered his massive head, a dragon bowing to a human. "You carry our ancient flame," the king said. "You are the guardian of Earth now." Daniel looked at the dragon child, then at the destroyed neighborhood around him. Sirens echoed in the distance. The world had seen everything. Nothing would ever be hidden again. Daniel took a slow breath. "What happens next?" he asked. The Dragon King looked up at the peaceful sky. "They will return," he said quietly. "And next time, they will not test you." Daniel's arm still glowed softly. He knew this was not over. This was only the beginning, because somewhere beyond the stars, the Void Emperor was awake. The night was quiet again, too quiet. Smoke still rose from broken buildings. Fire trucks and military vehicles surrounded the area. News helicopters circled high above, keeping distance from the dragons still in the sky. The world had seen everything. There was no hiding dragons now. No calling it weather. No calling it an accident. Daniel stood in the middle of the ruined street. His arms still glowed faintly. The fire inside him was calmer now, but stronger. The Dragon King watched him carefully. "You have awakened fully," the king said. Daniel looked up at the massive creature. "You said they will return." "They will," the king replied. "And next time, the Void Emperor will not send hunters. He will come himself." The dragon child stepped closer to Daniel. "If he enters this world completely," the child said softly, "Earth will break." Daniel looked around at the damaged houses, at frightened people being taken away by soldiers, at the sky that looked normal again. Normal, like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Military commanders approached slowly. Weapons were lowered now, not in trust, but in uncertainty. One general stepped forward. "You," he said to Daniel. "You're human. Stand with us. Help us control them." He looked up at the Dragon King with suspicion. Daniel felt something heavy inside his chest. Control them. That word felt wrong. The Dragon King's eyes narrowed slightly, but he did not attack. He waited. The Dragon Child looked at Daniel. This was the moment. Not a battle. Not fire. A choice. Daniel slowly walked away from the soldiers. He stood between the humans and the dragons. They're not the enemy, Daniel said clearly. The general's face hardened. You saw what they did to this city. I saw what the hunters did, Daniel answered. And something worse is coming. The mark on his arm began glowing brighter. Not with anger. With warning. Suddenly the ground shook again. Not violently. Deep. Like something far below the earth was moving. The Dragon King lifted his head quickly. They are opening a gate, he said. Where? Daniel asked. The Dragon Child closed his eyes. Not in the sky. Everyone felt it now. The vibration was coming from underground. Across the world, volcanoes began erupting in different countries. News reports exploded across screens. Earthquakes shook cities far away. The Void Emperor was not breaking the sky this time. He was breaking the planet from inside. Daniel felt the fire inside him react strongly. Pain rushed through his body. He fell to one knee. The Dragon Child caught him. What is happening? Daniel gasped. You are connected to Earth now, the child said. The Guardian does not protect only dragons. He protects the world that shelters them. The Dragon King stepped closer. There is one way to stop him, he said. Daniel looked up. What? The king's voice became heavy. You must seal the gate from inside. Silence fell around them. The soldiers listened carefully now. What does that mean? Daniel asked slowly. It means, the king said, you must enter the void. The word itself felt cold. The Dragon Child shook his head slightly. It is a place between worlds. No human has survived it. Daniel gave a small, nervous smile. Guess I'm first then. The ground cracked in the middle of the street. A deep red and black light burst upward. A portal, not wide yet, but growing. Dark whispers came from inside it. The soldiers stepped back in fear. Dragons above roared loudly. The Void Emperor's voice echoed faintly through the crack. Guardian, come. Daniel stood up slowly. His arm was fully covered in golden fire now. He looked at the Dragon Child. Will you be okay? He asked. The child's eyes were strong now. I will become king one day, he said. Because of you. The Dragon King lowered his massive head once more. If you fall, human, we will not forget your name. Daniel looked at the sky, at the stars, at his small broken garage in the distance. A normal life, gone in one night. He took a deep breath. Then he stepped toward the portal. The heat and cold mixed together around him. His fire shield protected his body, but the darkness tried to pull him in. Before entering, he turned back once. Protect this world, he said, to all of you. Then Daniel jumped. The portal swallowed him instantly. The crack in the ground closed halfway. Inside the void, everything was silent. Black space, floating pieces of light. And far ahead, the Void Emperor's full form began to appear. Huge, endless, eyes burning red. So small, the Emperor said. Daniel raised both arms. The fire around him grew larger than ever before. It was no longer just on his skin. It came from his heart, from his will. You picked the wrong world, Daniel said. The Void Emperor attacked first. Dark waves rushed toward him like a storm. Daniel pushed his fire forward. Light and darkness collided. The void shook. On Earth, dragons and humans watched the portal pulse violently. The Dragon Child whispered, fight. Inside the void, Daniel felt his strength fading. The Emperor was ancient, stronger, but Daniel remembered something from his vision. The Guardian was not powerful alone. He was powerful because dragons believed in him, because the world stood with him. Suddenly, he felt it. From Earth, dragon fire rising toward the sky. Human hope, fear turning into unity. The flame inside him exploded brighter than a star. The Void Emperor roared for the first time. You are not alone, Daniel shouted. He pushed forward with everything he had. Light pierced the darkness. The Emperor's form began breaking apart. Cracks of gold spread across his shadow body. No, the Emperor roared. One final blast of fire filled the void. Then, silence. On Earth, the portal collapsed completely. The ground sealed. The shaking stopped. Volcanoes calmed. The sky became peaceful. The Dragon King closed his eyes slowly. He has done it, he said quietly. The Dragon Child looked at the empty street. Tears formed in his glowing eyes. He is the guardian, he whispered. High above Earth in deep space, a small golden spark appeared. Not gone, not destroyed, just changed. Because guardians do not end. They rise again when the world needs them. And somewhere beyond the stars, a new threat felt the light ignite and began to move.